The flight was already delayed. Tensions were high, but when a flight attendant shredded a black woman's passport in front of stunned passengers, claiming it was probably fake, nobody expected what came next. What the captain did next not only shocked the entire cabin but left the racist flight attendant jobless, humiliated, and exposed before the world. Before we begin, hit subscribe because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about justice at 30,000 feet. Asterisk. It started like any normal boarding process. The usual line of travelers dragging their carry-ons through the jet bridge, murmuring impatiently as announcements echoed overhead. The summer heat outside clashed with the stale air conditioning inside the aircraft. The flight from Heathrow to JFK was packed, and in seat 17A sat Dr. Amara Benson, a respected neurosurgeon, elegantly dressed, calm and composed, her British passport clutched gently in her hand. She had just returned from a global medical summit in Switzerland and was heading to New York to conduct a breakthrough brain operation. But none of that mattered when flight attendant Karen Whitmore, a 42-year-old stewardess with a long record of disciplinary red flags that somehow had always been buried, saw Amara approaching. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said sharply, intercepting Amara at the cabin door. "I'll need to check your passport again." Confused but courteous, Amara handed it over. Karen took it and, with a glance that could cut ice, tilted her head as if something didn't smell right. "This doesn't feel genuine," she said loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Gasps followed. "What?" Amara blinked, stunned. "That's my valid passport." But before Amara could reach out, Karen smirked, lifted the document, and with two dramatic jerks ripped the passport in half, sending tiny fragments fluttering to the cabin floor like dead butterflies. People froze. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "Hey, you can't do that." But Karen smiled smugly, her voice rising. "We have a lot of people faking documents nowadays. You people always try to act smart." The words "you people" hung heavy in the air like poison. Amara didn't move. Her eyes locked on Karen. That was a government document. "That was my identity," she said, her voice trembling not from fear, but rage and disbelief. Children turned to look. Businessmen who had been typing on laptops stopped mid-sentence. Karen laughed and walked away, yelling, "Captain's orders." But that was a lie, one she wouldn't get away with. Because the captain had heard every word, Captain Elijah Monroe, seasoned pilot known for both his military background and his zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, had just been reviewing weather updates in the cockpit when one of the junior attendants ran in, face pale. "Captain," she whispered, "there's been an incident." At first, he assumed it was a seating issue. But then she said the words, "Karen just tore up a black passenger's passport." Called it fake. Elijah blinked. "She what?" He stood up without a word, marched down the aisle as the murmurs grew. Passengers were visibly uncomfortable. One elderly woman whispered, "This is 2025 and we're still doing this." Another man was already uploading the footage to TikTok. Amara stood still, regal despite the insult, arms crossed, shredded pieces of her passport in hand. Elijah approached her directly. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Monroe. Saw what happened, and first, let me say, I'm deeply sorry. This is unacceptable." Karen, arms folded, tried to intervene. "Sir, I was just doing my duty enough," Elijah barked. The cabin went silent. "Go wait in the galley." But now, Karen stomped off. Elijah turned. "Back to Amara. I need to ask, do you have a digital copy of your passport or any other ID?" Amara nodded, opening her iPad where she kept all her documents for international travel. Elijah verified it, then picked up the cabin phone. "This is your captain speaking." We are currently delayed due to an onboard incident involving a staff member. We take discrimination very seriously and will be removing the individual involved before departure." Applause erupted. Karen screamed from the back, "You're siding with her. She's probably lying. You're gonna ruin my career." "For her?" The captain walked to her calmly. "Karen, you ruined your career, not her. And it's about time someone held you accountable." Police were called. She was escorted out in handcuffs for tampering with international travel documents. But the story was just beginning, because what Amara did next shook the airline industry to its core. Asterisk, the footage went viral. Hashtags like #PassportJustice, #FlyingWhileBlack, and #Dr. Amara trended on every platform. News outlets from CNN to the BBC picked up the story. Civil rights organizations rallied behind Amara, but she didn't stop there. She launched a class action lawsuit against the airline, exposing decades of unreported incidents, discriminatory hiring, and mishandling of complaints. Her voice became the lightning rod for accountability in aviation. Thousands of passengers of color came forward with similar stories. And under legal pressure and PR disaster, the airline was forced to launch a massive internal investigation. Karen's face became the subject of international shame. Interviews surfaced of former co-workers describing her repeated offenses. Amara, meanwhile, was invited to speak at the United Nations about racism in global travel. Oprah interviewed her. Netflix offered a documentary deal. But despite the whirlwind, Amara stayed grounded. "I didn't ask for this fight," she said in one interview. But once injustice stares you in the face, you either look away or you do something about it. Months later, the airline restructured its entire HR system, fired 10 other staff members involved in cover-ups, and started a diversity training program led by none other than Dr. Amara Benson. Captain Elijah was honored for his courage, and in a touching twist, Amara invited him as her guest of honor during her historic brain surgery in New York, which saved a child's life and symbolically healed something broken in all of us. In one final moment of poetic justice, Amara stood before the camera, holding up a brand new passport, saying, This is not just a document. It's proof that we belong everywhere, always." And with that, she smiled, and the screen faded to black. Subscribe, because real stories like these need to be heard.